Welcome to the Holy Harlot podcast. I'm Mary Lisa, your intuitive psychic bestie, and here we help move you from stressed to sensual. Welcome to another episode for Holy Harlot. I'm Mary Lisa, and it's been a while. It has been a while because this summer has been wild for me. I was on 2 international trips. I completely lost my identity, went through huge cycles of rage and grief and sadness and confusion, and here I am on the other side of it. It has been a very dramatic summer for me. I've been rebuilding my sense of self based on all new premises. More conscious, more space, more sensual, but it was a difficult one. So here I am. Today we're going to be talking about good girl rehab. This has been coming up a lot, some of it a personal experience for me, and some of it things that I've noticed in some of my clients, some of the women in the Holy Harlot Awakening program. And I feel like many of the conditioning patterns that we have, the Good Girl program remains unconscious. Like, we don't know that we're working off of this collective program and how it's actually reducing our magnetism, reducing our authenticity, and harming our ability to create the juicy, fulfilling life that we consciously really want, right? And that's the interesting thing about programming is our conscious mind is about 5% of our cognitive ability. It's like the tip of the iceberg, and then 95%, the rest, is subconscious programming. And I've talked a little bit about this recently, that they've done studies where your subconscious mind sends the thought to your consciousness like 0.3 seconds before you even have the thought. So you are a collection of programming, and that's designed that way biologically because there's too much stimulation out there for our brain to process all at once, so it runs on patterns. And the way to break that is to notice the patterns, to bring more awareness, and to implement strategies, hello pleasure, hello embodiment, that can help us rewire those programmings without engaging with them as often. So anyways, that's my nerdy take on what we're going to talk about today. So first, what is a good girl? And I have a bunch of notes here. We'll see if we get through them all, but a good girl is not a person, not a woman. It's a role that we play. It's actually a survival strategy. Many of us act out on these programmings to stay safe, to be approved of, to be a part of a society that rewards our complacence, our subservience over our authenticity. And it shows up in a lot of weird, unconscious ways. So, core traits of the good girl are, and you can put your fingers up if you need to, but seeks approval to validate our worth. And the way this has shown up recently for me is attaching my worth to outcomes in my business. And that has been a process of unwinding for the last few months, realizing that my worth cannot be attached to anything but my internal sense of self, and avoids conflict at the cost of her truth. I'm going to try not to speak in between these. Associates love with self-abandonment. I will continue to abandon my own needs because this person is giving me love or attention or affection or intimacy, equates likability with safety. If these people like me, then I'll be approved of, then I'll have the friend group that I need, the dopamine that I need. Prioritizes being nice over real. And I think I've mentioned before, I have a real problem with the word nice because it's often associated with women. Be nice, or anyways, I think nice and kind in my semantics are quite different, because to me, nice implies that it is the sacrifice of truth, but kind can come from a place where you can kindly set a boundary, you can kindly express your needs. So that's the differentiation for me. Over functions, over apologizes, and over edits. This is a big one for people pleasers, right? Over functioning. What can I give you? Because what I give you is how you'll feel about me, and how you'll feel about me is how I feel about myself. Over apologizing is a really interesting one. Also very feminine, like bumping into someone and being like, sorry, or starting a sentence with sorry, but. Also internalizing shame for having anger or having a desire or being bold. I was recently talking to one of the Holy Harlot gals about her need to be seen as perfect. And I so identified with that, but that need to be seen as perfect blocks you from the polarity that is experienced when you have decided that your voice is worthwhile, and is praised for being low maintenance or easygoing. Do you guys remember that movie and that book Gone Girl by I think it was Gillian Flynn? And she's basically a sociopath, but she gets with her husband by playing the cool girl. It's like a role that she put on, and she's like, I pretended to like beer, I pretended to like football, I pretended to like the sex that we have because I'm a cool girl. And it really reminds me of that. Like, that's good girl syndrome. Like, whatever you like, I like it too, or I'll pretend to like it because you like it, and what you like matters more than what I like. It's exhausting. So where does all of this come from? Well, it comes from cultural conditioning, and I think some of us grew up with it in our family, some of us didn't, but received the programming from schools or from media or even from our biology in our DNA. Yes, you get passed along DNA in the patterns in the bioluminescence of your DNA from past ancestors. So how they behaved, what they thought, what they experienced is biologically passed down to us. So some of the cultural conditioning messages that create the good girl are to be polite, to be quiet, and to be helpful. This is a really interesting one because I'm watching my nephew grow up, and he's about 4 years old now. And his mom and dad are really good about, and my friend's kid, who's also 4, I got to hang out with her a little bit this summer. And anyways, what I'm noticing in this new generation of children is that the parents, the millennial parents, are allowing their children to set boundaries. Like, no, I don't want to hug grandpa. And it might be like, oh my gosh, just hug the fucking old man. But in reality, it's setting independence quickly. And I know that when I was growing up, I grew up mainly in an Italian family, and we would have big gatherings every month to celebrate everybody's birthday. And I remember when I got in and before we left, it would be like, go say hello to everyone, and we'd kiss on the cheeks. And then before we left, it would be like, go kiss everyone on the cheeks. And I really don't think I minded. There were obviously times where I didn't want to hug anyone and I didn't want to kiss anyone, but I did it out of duty. And it's not problematic until the child learns that other people's needs are more important than their internal boundaries. And it doesn't get set up in like a nefarious way, like, Mary Lisa, your needs don't matter. It's just politeness was valued over my internal independence, or yours, or hers, or his. But more information starts to get piled onto things like that, like being polite. So if being polite matters more than my internal boundaries, then when I start going on dating and someone leans in to kiss me and I really don't want to kiss them, I freeze because I'm like, oh, has that ever happened to you? That was a hard habit to break for me. I was going to say TMI, but this is the Holy Harlot podcast. We literally talk about clitoris. So yeah. Another place it comes from is religious or spiritual expectations to be pure, to be modest, and to be serving. And it's really interesting because I know a lot of women, especially in the healing space, who did grow up religious, where it was mostly men in positions of power. And I know when I was going to church, we had to have, wear proper clothing, which is like covering our chest and our arms and our it's like entering a Catholic church, But I've heard from other women, like, it was even more aggressive. I grew up next to a girl who every month she had to recommit her purity to her Christian church. And it creates this whole idea that our worth is related to either our virginity or our body. Because if covering up your body is so paramount to respect spirit or God, then it creates all these kind of weird conditions around sex and sexuality, where having a sexual expression would mean that you're not being in service of, the greater that is. Other places it comes from is family systems that reward obedience and punish truth. Ancestral survival patterns passed on through lineage. And when you think about our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents, our nanas and papas, they were in an even more constrained society in some ways, especially socially. There was not as much, it may have been easier, but it wasn't as open. You couldn't just be authentically who you were. There was a lot more rigidity in the scripts of what you were allowed to be. Also, nervous system imprinting. So especially from early experiences of rejection or chaos. So if you had a parent that consistently rejected you, then you might step into the good girl conditioning to avoid being rejected, because that parent, you're constantly looking for that validation, and learn that love exists outside of you rather than inside of you. Or there was chaos in the home or chaos at school, and you learned that being quiet and being pleasing gave you more a likelier chance of social survival. So anyways, there's lots of places to get it, and it doesn't really matter in the end, as long as you understand where it shows up for you in your life and how it's limiting. So let's go over some ways that it may be showing up in your life so that you can identify this pattern and kind of how to start to unwind it. And it is from the nervous system. It's also from the subconscious that will begin to unwind it. So one of the biggest ones for me is over-explaining. Growing up extremely intuitive, I learned early on that that's not how everyone operated. And I picked up this pattern where I tried to explain why I was having these feelings or why I was having these needs, because I was so in tune with my body. But over-explaining is just a fear of disapproval and loss of connection. Over-explaining sends your power away. And for me, I've learned, gosh, a few months ago after a hairy date, that my feelings need no explanation. I'm feeling like this is a no. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling like I need to get up and move around. I'm feeling like I need to get out of the house. I'm feeling like I need to lay down for the rest of the day. Those are full sentences. Those are full explanations. But when someone is engaged in over-explaining, it's truly because they don't trust themselves. Like they've learned to externalize or out-resource their power. Someone else needs to tell me that that's okay, that I'm having these feelings. Do you get it? Is that okay that I stay in and rest because I'm exhausted? No? All right, let's go. Another pattern is feeling guilty when you're resting or when you say no to something. This one is still pretty prevalent inside of me. I'm getting better at it thanks to that book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I believe that's how you say his name. But it's fundamental to healing the kidneys. The kidneys are our source of life. They purify our blood. They heal our family systems. They give us energy and clarity. The only way to heal the kidneys is through stillness and silence. But when we feel guilty for saying no, having a boundary, or resting, what it means is that we don't value our own internal guidance. We would rather run ourselves ragged trying to prove ourselves than honor what we're feeling. Again, this is an example of just outsourcing. You tell me, that okay? Is that okay? Another one, and these three are mental patterns, is running decisions through an approval filter. So I have a substantial following on social media, and I edit what I say a lot because I am scared to say something that will trigger someone or hurt someone's feelings. But I have learned that someone can take what you say and be hurt from it no matter what. I do still believe, I was hiding behind this idea that like, I just really care. I don't want to hurt anyone. It's never my intention. But being on such a platform where there's, thousands and thousands of people watching what I say, I've learned that I could say that I love my dog Sullivan, and someone will say, well, my dog died and you're an asshole for talking about dogs. And it's like, okay, yeah, no, I get it now, Spirit. Like, I need to say what I want to say because I'll find my people. It's a game of polarity. The more you practice saying your true self, as long as it's come from the heart, then it gets expressed in perfect self-expression, then you got to do it. I've had a lot of practice with triggering people because of social media, and I'm really good about not letting the trigger of someone else, I don't own that anymore. I'm like, okay, they're having a problem with what I said. I honor that, but I don't own it. I don't own it anymore. And I'm really good at that in my personal life too. My friends will tell you, I'll say whatever I think or feel. And, sometimes people disagree with me, which is kind of the beautiful thing. Disagreement is fantastic. We need to be more okay with disagreement. So some communication habits, some signs of good girl patterning are starting sentences with sorry. Sorry for bumping into you. Sorry for having a feeling. Sorry, but can I ask you a question? Yeah, that gets me. That gets me. Because I hear it a lot in women. I hear it a lot in my clients. And I'm like, oh, why are you apologizing for that? You don't even notice that you're doing it. Another one is smiling or laughing when you feel uncomfortable just to help the other person save face. I did this a lot in my 20s. I'd go on a date and I need to start a book of all my wacky dates. This one was in Orange County, and he was telling me how gay people are not real. And instead of telling him, I'm uncomfortable, this is weird. What the fuck are you talking about? I sat there and he did not come up for air for 2 hours. I sat there and I listened to his conspiracy theories about the Russian government coming in and replacing all our men with gay people so that we wouldn't have an army. Listen, I was like 24. I'm 34 now. I swear I know better. But it was a big one for me because I would, at that point in my life, and you know, continue on for a while, I would rather people feel comfortable than let them know that then kind of walk into a confrontation with them, you know? So that's a good girl programming. Also, okay, so some signs of good girl patterning in embodiment and behavior. Tensing your body or shrinking your posture. I had a client tell me that, you know, she takes a bus places and she was so proud of herself because she usually like kind of shrinks so that, you know, people that sit next to her have more space. But this man came to sit next to her and he like spread out his legs, spread out his arms, and, you know, took up more than just the seat, like into her space. And so she like spread her knees and took up more space and was basically like touching him with her taking up as much space as he was. And it made him uncomfortable. But it was such a beautiful moment for her because she got to take opposite action. She was like, no, this is my space. I'm not shrinking for you. And it's little moments like that that help us rewire the things that keep us small, that prevent us from getting what we want and expressing how we feel. Staying quiet in groups unless you're certain that your input is perfect. Automatically cleaning up after people, physically or emotionally, without being asked. Changing your tone or volume to sound more palatable or pleasant. This is also something I notice more in women. It's the change of the voice. Hi. When I was working in the service industry, we call it the service voice because, hi, how are you doing? Like the high pitched, like I'm just a little girl. Please don't yell at me. Please be nice to me while you're at my place of work. And then smiling or nodding when you internally disagree. I don't relate to most of those, but they're kind of funny, and I'm sure that some of you out there do. So this is how good girl patterning shows up in relationships. Taking care of someone else's emotions before your own. Emotionally babysitting people. This is a tricky one because a lot of women come to me where they feel like their needs are not getting met in their relationship, their friendship, their relationship at work, with boss or whatever. And they are constantly emotionally taking care of the other person, but then they also are not verbalizing that they need something. So this is the danger of like creating a loop where you always are the victim. And so you'll carry this loop with you into other relationships, other circumstances. And I've definitely done this before. And it takes some honest self-reflection of being like, okay, did I let them know what I needed? Or did I just harbor it while I continued to take care of them, growing in resentment? Another point is saying yes to things because you don't want people to disapprove of you. You want to be seen as giving, as caring, as nurturing, as helpful. Feeling responsible for other people's reactions when you set a boundary. This is a big one for me, especially with people that I love. People that aren't in my inner circle, I naturally just tell it like it is. But people who make it past my defenses, I have a hard time setting boundaries without taking emotional ownership for them. And that is as one of my clients so lovingly puts it, is an intimacy injunction. Like, I would rather sacrifice myself as long as you're happy in this relationship. Please continue to take from me while I continue to shrink. And the other person has no idea. Also, seeking permission to feel rage, joy, or shame. We are so, as a culture, resistant to having these quote unquote negative emotions. I feel like this is a whole nother episode because I have a lot to fucking say about it. But it is natural and healthy to have these emotions. It is not natural and healthy to suppress them so much that they become inflammation, autoimmune disorders, and lots of other dis-eases and disharmonies in the body. We're not taught early on how to appropriately deal with shame. See previous episode with Nina. We're not properly taught how to deal with anger. I was talking to a friend recently where I just kind of realized that most of us didn't have a healthy example of how to deal with anger growing up. Either one parent was really angry all the time or that's kind of the only example that I can think of. But when that happens, when our first example of anger is like continued outbursts, continued projection and aggression, then the kids will either take that with them as like anger equals aggression, or they'll internalize it. It's not okay to be angry because it makes other people feel unsafe. I was in Montenegro with Nina from previous episode, working with her, hanging out with her and her family this summer, and she is so smart. She is so brilliant, and she taught me a lot of things. Like we talked about on shame, it's important that we learn how to deal with shame so that we don't internalize it and don't project it onto others. We co-regulate with shame. With anger, she helped me realize that I do not have a healthy relationship with anger, because she pointed out that I process anger, I explain anger, rather than letting it rise within me and getting frustrated and raising my voice. I'm like, oh, that sounds aggressive. She's like, anger is an expression. It needs to be moved through your body. You don't do it in an unsafe way to other people. But having anger, it needs to be moved in the moment. What I realized is that I was internalizing it and then coming back later to that person and being like, hey, that made me really angry. But at that point, the moment had passed and I had stored it in my fucking fascia to be processed at a later date. And that was really revolutionary for me, because I realized that I did that a lot with bigger emotions. I tried to internalize them. I tried to shrink them so that no one would see how much it was affecting me. And then I would go back to them with a calm state and be like, hey, that wasn't okay with me. But in reality, anger needs to be moved. And I talk with my clients a lot about this because most of them deal with internalized rage and they don't realize it. But if anger feels unsafe to you, it's probably because you didn't have a good example of how to express anger. So instead of the pendulum moving to like getting really angry and like freaking out at people, hold some space for your own anger. Like a few times a week, schedule yourself an anger song and then dance really angry or scream into your pillow or have a moment. Because there's probably a lot of patterns that need to come out, and we don't want them to come out sideways. Nina also pointed out that a lot of people don't know how to hold space for when other people have anger. Sometimes voices are raised. Sometimes frustrations are seen. Sometimes things get slammed. And anger needs to move. Anger is a motivational but there's also, elements of emotion that come underneath that. So if you feel anger in the moment, you'll be able to get to the root of the emotion underneath. That was a long explanation, but basically you heard. Okay, feeling unsafe when fully seen. This is your girl. I told you the summer was hard for me, yeah. I had several situations where I had an opportunity to be fully seen and fully met, and I felt wildly uncomfortable. Probably because it was happening too soon in a healthy relationship, but this again is that intimacy injunction, because I feared that if someone saw all of me, not just the healer, the helper, but also the moody, the silly, the mean, the lazy, that I wouldn't be accepted. And in one of those situations, I was rejected. I was fully seen, I fully expressed myself, and I was rejected. And it was like my worst nightmare came true. All my inner story was like, see, people can't handle you, you're too much, blah, 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 all these old stories, right? 2 months later, I'm able to tell you, you come out full circle, you come out stronger. And I won't engage in that pattern again of being feared for being seen. I'll be able, because I'm at so much comfort with myself now, I can let the flag fly. And if someone rejects that, I know they're not rejecting me at this point. Okay, so nervous system patterns of the good girl. Chronic jaw tension. So the throat chakra, which comes into the jaw, is the sister to the sacral chakra. Throat and sacral. They're sisters. They process things very similarly. They even look similar. And when you have a tight pelvic floor, you're hypertonic. Okay, and it's not like tight, you have a tight pussy. No, it's like weak. It's like struggling to like stay because it's so full with tension. Like, can you imagine flexing? There's a muscle there, I swear. Can you imagine flexing forever? Like, that muscle will eventually lose all of its ATP. It will get exhausted and strained. So if you have a tight pelvic floor, you have a tight jaw and throat. If you have a tight jaw and throat, you have a tight pelvic floor. They reflect each other in that way. And it's all from holding back your needs. You're not expressing what you need, maybe because you learned that your needs would not be met. However, you're an adult now and you can reprocess that and reprogram that and refeel that so that that's no longer true. Difficulty receiving compliments, money, help, love. This is all kind of back chakra stuff. And you might find it difficult to receive because the good girl tells you that you have to always be giving. You have to always be pleasing others. They matter more. And if someone tries to give to you, you'll feel like you owe them. Psh, nah. People pleasing dressed up as spiritual service and being a healer. Definitely called out myself in that one. I feel like becoming a healer is my path, but it also plays into my wounds to be needed, my wounds to be loved, my wounds to be helpful. And so teasing that all out just allows me to kind of help more people, receive more love for myself, receive more care for myself. There's a lot more balance in it. Overachievement as a way to earn love or worth. I remember growing up and my dad was always my coach. He was a coach for my soccer teams and we were like in a club and we would travel and play, and then I felt so pressured. I felt so pressured to be so good. I wanted to impress my dad and I was like, oh man. And when I got to high school, I could not handle the pressure anymore. So I prayed, dear God, please injure me so bad that I can never play soccer again. And I would pray that every night. Yeah. And so what do you think happened? I got injured during soccer tryouts for my freshman year, and I never played soccer again. What I did instead, as my knee was recovering, is I started swimming. And then I started playing water polo. And I was pretty good at water polo because your girl was angry. Your girl loved to headbutt people and was pretty good at it. I was not a fast swimmer, but I was an angry water polo player. And it was really fun. And then I was like, oh, phew, my dad doesn't know the rules of water polo. I don't have to impress him. But being the good dad that he is, he showed up to all my games and started to learn all the rules, and I started to feel that pressure again. I mean, it's all, and here I am, a 34-year-old woman being like, if I'm not successful, then I'm not worthy, and everyone's gonna look at me and be like, you shitty motherfucker. It's a program from so long ago. And as I said, I'm an adult and I'm in charge of my thoughts and I'm in charge of my patterns and my triggers, and thankfully, with just a little bit of awareness, I am moving through it. Anyways, that's my long story about that. So the way that chronic people pleasing and good girl patterning affects your nervous system, maybe you identified with a lot of those. Maybe you identified with some of them. But can you start to see how these behaviors are limiting your momentum and magnetism? Constantly worried about what other people are thinking, overthinking so much about yourself and your presentation and your worth that you have no space for rest, mental rest, spiritual rest, emotional rest. Maybe you're starting to notice you're of a certain age where you've got tension all the time. You're tired all the time. Your hormones are out of whack. Maybe it's all from emotional patterns, partially good girl. So this is related to the fawn. So we have our sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic, fight, flight, freeze, and now fawn. And then the parasympathetic is rest, digest, receive. So if we're constantly on high alert of like, how can I please other people? You can see how all of your energy from your kidneys gets pumped through you into like being hyper aware. A lot of women who are strong psychics, intuitives, it was kind of forced onto them because of their early patterning, them having to be hyper aware of the needs of other people around them. Am I good? Are you good? Are we happy? Can I make you happy? Am I palatable? Do you love me? So, what it does when we're constantly in fawn is you don't even know your desires. You are disconnected from your truth. I see this not as often, but when women come in for a psychic reading and they're like, what's on the path for me? I immediately am like, what do you want to happen in your life? Right? Like, what are your desires? What are your goals? Like, what would feel good? And they're like, I don't know. Can you just look into the future and tell me? And I'm like, no. The fuck? No, I cannot. That's, first of all, not how it works. Second of all, sounds like we actually need to do a healing. Also, obedience over authenticity really dulls our intuition. I had this experience, I'll tell you about that date that got hairy, quote unquote. This guy was fantastic on paper. I was like, oh my God, he's a naturopathic doctor. I'm in love already. He totally understood me. He could listen to me talk about my work, was very interested. He was texting like novels, and I was like, oh, maybe he just is. I guess I said I wanted them to be intentional, so maybe that's it. Anyways, we go on a second date, and I immediately get the ick. Not really explainable other than like he kept the Siri navigation on. So every time we would start a conversation, it would be like, turn left in 6 miles. You're getting closer, keep going. And I was like, can you shut that thing up? I cannot think with the computer yelling in my ear. And he was like, oh, sorry. But he did not shut it off. We get to the park. He packed a full thing of like charcuterie, fresh fruits. Like it was a picnic. And he packed it all. And he brought games and he brought blankets. Like he was very thoughtful. And we get up there, and he tells me the only thing I need to bring is a bottle of wine. So I'm like, cool, I can do that. So I bring a bottle of wine, and we open it, and I have a glass, he has a glass, then he has another glass, then he has another glass. And I'm like, okay, interessante. But I have like a 2-drink max when I go out, because that's just my thing. I've been through AA. I'm good. I don't want to feel weird or out of control. And I usually work with clients in the morning, so I've had this rule for several years now. And then he pulls out, because I told him I used to be a bartender, he pulls out all the ingredients for a whiskey sour. If you don't know, a whiskey sour is very involved. It uses egg whites. Okay, so he gets the Jameson, he gets the lemon, he cracks open an egg and just gets that. And he's sitting at the park with me and shaking it. And I'm like, it's odd. Why would you bring more alcohol? You know, just thoughts in my head. And I take a sip and I'm like, woo, I'm feeling really relaxed, but I haven't even had my second drink yet. Weird. I start to feel kind of dizzy and I'm like, I'm too relaxed. I'm far too relaxed. So I start to freak out. I call my healing master. I'm like, John Michael, I'm freaked out. And my nervous system or my spiritual helper, whatever, got me my senses back. And I'm like, hey, I'm feeling really weird. I'm feeling really uncomfortable. Something's happening in my body. And he was like, just lay down. And I was like, nope. I gotta go. So he takes me home. And then over the next few days, I'm having trouble justifying that I don't want to go out with him again. Because the logic, the over justification, the good girl was like, he did nothing wrong. It's just your body had a strange reaction or you were picking up on something intuitive, but like, how can you explain that to him? Again, wanting to over explain myself. I was talking with a friend and she was like, you don't need to explain anything. Your body gave you how she felt and that's all. Just say no thank you. And that was really hard for me. Because I want to be understood. And I also want to preserve the integrity of other people at the cost of my own. Lesson learned. Let's see. When you silence yourself long enough, the body begins to scream because all of those chemicals that are released for corresponding emotions, if you don't let the emotion move and be felt and processed and spoken about, then it will get stored like a file folder in your fascia, and then your fascia will start to harden and get adhesions, and then before you know it, you've got a bum shoulder, or you keep twisting your knee. Like energy patterns, my friends. Your body will scream if you're not listening. So why high achieving women often unconsciously default to obedience? Success in patriarchal systems has long shown us that it depends on being agreeable. Of course, there are examples of women pushing through with truth or nepotism. But it takes a sort of radical authenticity and trust in yourself in order to work against a system that was not designed for your success. So this is your calling to practice radical authenticity, radical truth if you want to do something big. Perfectionism also is just agreeableness wrapped in gold stars. Like, look how good I did. Did I do it good? Are you guys proud of me? Good, because I die when I leave work. The more competent that an overachieving woman becomes, the more invisible her needs are, because everyone can see her as having it all together, Meanwhile, she is disintegrating on the inside. When I went away to eating disorder treatment, and I came back, and my family's like, how do you want to let other people know in the family? And I was like, oh, we'll just let them know as it comes up. Like, I'm not ashamed, like, but I'm not gonna blast it. I remember my cousin who taught me esoteric Reiki. She was like a spiritual teacher for me for a while. We had this phone call, and I was like, yeah, I was in eating disorder treatment for almost a year. And she was like, what? That's so cool to hear. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And she was like, no, it's because you always appear to be so put together. I was thinking that, it's good to see that you're a human. And I feel like you could take that one of two ways. The way that I took it was, it is good to be seen as a human, because I was holding it all together, pretending I was good for so long. I got really good at pretending that none of my needs were ever met, because no one ever knew what was going on with me. That was good girl to the max. To the max. I really don't even, I'm trying to conjure images and feelings of what that girl felt like, and I don't even, she is gone from the body and the system. I don't even know. Let's talk about the difference between being kind and being pleasing. Kindness comes from an overflow. And this is what we teach in the Holy Harlot Awakening program. When you are so turned on, when you are so pleased, when you are so in your enjoyment and happiness, it fills you up, and the overflow is what touches other people, what blesses other people. It's the same thing with kindness, right? Pleasing people comes from fear of rejection. It's kind of selfish. I don't know if I believe what I just said. It's nuanced. Because being selfish can be good, you need to take care of yourself, but maybe self-absorbed was more the word that I was thinking of. And I've spent many years self-absorbed, so concerned with what other people thought about me, how I was going to be perceived, etc. Kindness is boundaries, while people-pleasing is letting the boundaries burn. All right, let's talk about basically how to start to unwind a lot of this. So much is in the Holy Harlot program. I mean, that's why it's 12 weeks long, because it takes some time to repattern and rewire the nervous system, and rewrite the subconscious programming. And I'm just going to say, it's through awareness, right? So maybe you had your journal out, maybe you identified some of the ways that you engage in good girl patterning. And then the next step is, how is this negatively impacting me? How is me emotionally babysitting people affecting my romantic relationships? How is me apologizing when I start a sentence impacting my success? How is being a perfectionist preventing me from enjoying my body, right? So whatever you identified with, ask yourself what the negative impact is. And then you can take a really good look and be like, okay, how motivated am I to change? How motivated am I to take opposite action? Because it might just be opposite action. But I will tell you about this and any other problem that you're having. The way out is not obsessing what's wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Maybe you have an infected pattern. Who fucking cares? Everybody does. Don't beat yourself up for being a good girl who beats herself up for having needs. Really, the way out is through pleasure, embodiment, breath, awareness. And I would say, if I am working on one of these patterns, that I would make a really strong focus to identifying what my desires are every day, and then what pleased me every day. That is how I would start to rewire a lot of this good girl conditioning in myself. As I told you, I just went through a whole pattern where I had to reorganize and redo, and that is what I did. I made sure that I focused on pleasure, because pleasure heals the nervous system 40 times faster than repetition and exposure therapy alone. Yeah. You're literally releasing a healing flow of hormonal cocktail through your whole body. And then also finding a new place for you to jump. Like once you identify what the patterns are that you're engaging in, think of a way that would be more beneficial. Like play out a scenario in your head. Maybe you had something happen recently where you said yes to something that you really didn't want to say yes to. Just imagine saying no and get your body, because your body will freak out probably, right? Because it has all that instinct around old patternings. So once you rewrite the script in your head, sit with the emotion. Worst case scenario, they get mad. Okay, am I okay with that? And if the answer is no, then find a different pattern to work on. Keep peeling away the onion. Also, all of this stems from not loving yourself enough. Really, if you loved yourself enough, it would be easy to let people think what they want of you because you would have your own self-approval. It would be easy to assert yourself because you loved yourself so much and you knew what a gift you were. It would be easy for you to say hell yes or say hell no because you knew yourself intimately. So it's all about self-love. So pleasure, embodiment, self-love. Anyways, let me know what pattern you identified with most in the comment section. And also let me know what you would like to talk about next on the Holy Harlot episode. And if you are ready to choose yourself, you are ready to dive deeper into your intuition, to unravel your instinct, to learn psychic protective tools, to learn about your archetypes, your internalized wounds and how to repattern them so that you feel sexy, sensual, and magnetic, ask me about the Holy Harlot program. So much love to you. Sorry this was so long. Besos and blessings.